This is the plaintiff, Kimberly Patrick. She says she and the defendant were involved in a relationship, and things ended abruptly when he threw her out of the place they once lived. The louse refused to take the electric bill and cable bill out of her name. He never paid them. Now her credit's ruined. Arrgh! She's suing him here and now for the $2,678 she's most definitely owed. This is the defendant, Carlos Pinheiro. He says the plaintiff was the one who walked out on him and their 5-year-old son, leaving the bills in her name. He tried to call to have the name switched, but they don't allow that. It was up to the plaintiff to make those changes. She didn't. Now here they are. End of story. He's accused of not doing the right thing.
All parties, please raise your right hands.
Welcome back to the People's Court. Next case in the docket. These litigants were together, but when they split up, the plaintiff says that the defendant stuck her with utility bills. The defendant says she walked out on him and their kid, and she's responsible for the bills. It's the case of lights out.
Thank you, Douglas. Okay, Kimberly Patrick?
Yes.
You are suing Carlos Pinheiro for $2,678 in cable bills and gas and electric, which according to you, he was supposed to take out of your name and didn't.
Yes.
Okay, what happened?
In November of 2013, Carlos and I got a new apartment on 29 West Street in Newburgh, and we lived there for a few months, and things were okay, but then things weren't anymore. And
How long had you been dating?
prior to that, we were together since 2011, maybe 2010. We broke up in January. And then by February 4th, he asked me to leave. He basically threw me out of the apartment and everything. And I asked him to take the electric bill and the cable bill out of my name because we split all the bills 50-50. And he said that he was going to take care of it and that I had nothing to worry about. He would do all of it. And then I moved into my new apartment March of 2014 by myself with my boyfriend. And then...
Oh, you had a boyfriend already in March?
It was complicated.
Was it complicated?
Yes. And then after that, I realized in January of 2015 that he had not paid the bills and that they were on my credit report and that they were outstanding. And
how did you figure that out?
The credit collector called me for the cable bill.
Got it.
I didn't know about the Central
Why
Hudson
didn't
bill.
you just take your name off the day you moved out and in with your new boyfriend? That's the day you needed to take your name off before there was a balance, right?
Yeah.
All right. So according to her, you owe her $2,678 in utilities.
Yes, Your Honor. We were together for 5 years. So we went to an agreement. I have the lease of us getting the apartment together.
Right. You're both on the lease?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, Your Honor.
You're in the middle of a lease when she moves out?
Yes.
All right. Did you ask her to move or did she move out?
I told her to move out.
And why did you tell her to move out?
I told her to move out because she cheated on me with a man that she got a job, that I got her the job, and she found a man and left me with my son. And then the reason why I kicked her out is because she didn't come home sometimes and left me with our son.
What, is it our son or your son?
Our son.
You have a son?
Yeah, we have a son together.
You have a son together? You gave all your testimony, you didn't mention your son? Where's the son? Who has custody?
We have 50-50.
We have 50-50.
Okay.
He lives with her.
So when you moved in with your boyfriend, you took your son with you?
He wouldn't
No.
let me take him for 6 months, but I had him every weekend.
Okay, and then what happened?
I said that my son wasn't going to leave, and I was hoping for an argument. I didn't get an argument. She left. So when she left, I took care of our son for almost 2 years, almost a year and a half. And then when it got to a point that I had to let him go over there. I met the boyfriend. We went about all the right ways, and then that's when he would go over there on the weekends.
Are you saying she didn't see the kid?
For a good 3 or 4 months.
She didn't see him at all?
She's seen him, but I'm not going to say she hasn't. She was very neglectful, but she's seen him
Like, how often would
she
she see
wanted.
him?
There was some weekends that I have seen my son waiting out the window for her, and she didn't show up, and I had to explain to him. And he was only 2 or 3 at the time.
So you moved out with your boyfriend and left your 2 or 3-year-old behind?
So when two people are together, and when they move in together, does it matter whether the utility bills are put in one person's name or should they be put in both?
Kept separate until they're married.
Kept separate, but then one person has to shoulder the burden of the bill.
Well, I think that since they decided to move in together, they should make a group effort and have...
So it should be in both?
Yes.
I'm not sure you're getting my point. I'll say in a minute. Going inside the courtroom.
When I moved out, I was going to take my child with me, but he wouldn't let our child leave.
So you said, oh, all right.
No, I came every weekend. I never missed a weekend when I was living in my new apartment. He didn't want my son at my new apartment, so I took him to my mother's for every weekend. And finally, it wasn't like 2 years. It was like 9 months of me having him every weekend. And then in his custody, my son started getting bites on him. And then I took him to live with me full time. And
What were the bites?
we rotated and
Like insect bites or human bites?
It was a flea bite.
Flea bites?
Flea bites, yeah.
So you took him full time, and now when do you see your son?
I see my son every weekend. I actually technically see him more than she sees him.
Why don't you owe her the money for utilities that she didn't use? Like, what's your defense? I'm asking.
I feel like I don't owe her because her responsibility is when she left, she should have canceled everything. I've told her to cancel everything. I couldn't do it due to the fact that they needed the information, her social security. Obviously, I don't sound like a female. I couldn't do it. And she told me that she would do it. She didn't do it.
Now, but you know that it's in her name.
Yes.
And you notice that you're not paying cable or electric or gas. Can you put your hand down? But cable or electric or gas, right? The
Yes.
year and a half. So you notice that it's
Yes.
not getting paid. How does this stuff not get turned off, or are you paying it sometimes?
When in the beginning I did pay, and then it got racked up because when she left, I was also left with rent and the utilities. So I
Okay.
couldn't, and taking care of our son. So it was one of those things that I had to take a sacrifice and try not to pay the bills and pay the most important, which was the rent. And then they got shut off, and then that's when I had to put it under my name.
When did it get shut off?
A year prior, couldn't pinpoint the exact date of the...
So
when it-
whenever it got shut off, that's when you called and say, hi, I'm a new tenant named Carlos Pinero, and I'd like to,
Yes.
yeah. All right.
Yes.
All right, so from February of 2014 until November of 2014, did you help to pay rent in a place where you had signed a lease?
when
Yes or no?
No.
Okay, so now he has to pay all of the rent? How much was the rent?
900.
He didn't pay it by
900?
himself.
Who did he
Yes.
pay it with?
He had the lease. We signed the lease.
Who did he pay it with?
His father and his father's
Oh, okay.
girlfriend.
Because you're nowhere to be found to pay your $450. You're not paying your
I had to
$450. Your
find
son's
some.
living there, and you're supposed to be paying your $450 because you have a lease with him that you've signed. Did you try to get another roommate?
Yes. Eventually, I couldn't come up with the rent, and
How
I had
much
to
later
get,
did you get a roommate?
About like 3 months after.
Okay. Who was paying 50-50? Was
My
she the
father-
roommate?
No.
Okay.
February, he had the landlord change the lease to take my name off of it and put his father's name on it.
Mm-hmm.
While I was taking all of my clothes out of the apartment, his father was already moved in. So 3 months of not having his father there isn't true.
Did
His
your
fa-
father move in?
My father moved in, but when she moved out,
Your father
it took
was
her
already
a while
there.
to get the stuff. So yes, there was stuff there when she moved the rest of her
Was
stuff
that
out.
the roommate, your father?
My father, yeah.
Do you have anything from the cable and gas company, all the bills that we're talking about here?
I have the Central Hudson bill,
Okay.
and then the cable bill is on my credit report.
So you're trying to buy a house now. That's why all this came up, right?
I was in the process of getting a home loan, and I got denied because of these things.
How are you this much of a slack jaw that you can't wait to run off with your new boyfriend and move in there without cutting these bills off so that this kind of situation doesn't happen? I don't understand that. Those are the things that should have been happening. How old are you?
I will be 24.
If you're old enough to bring a life into this world, then you're old enough to pay attention, okay? And this is the kind of stuff you have to pay attention to. Did you just forget?
No, that's not that I forgot. I told him constantly.
How is he gonna, do you not understand that the stuff was in your name? You're the one who has to get it out of your name? How is he gonna get it out of your name? If that were the case, every time I get mad at Douglas, I could call the cable company and say, cancel Douglas's cable. Like, that's not how it works. It's you have to do it. Give me that.
You got it.
Here's what's gonna happen. The total amount that is outstanding is the $2,678. Your part of the rent for 3 months is $1,350. Anybody who gets walked out on in a rental agreement has a duty to mitigate damages eventually and bring somebody else in there. It gets a little more complicated when there's a child involved. You can't just bring in any stranger. You know, it takes a little bit of time. So I'm going to order her to pay you the rent for those 3 months, or that's on your side of the ledger. But I am going to order you to pay for the remainder. In other words, I'm subtracting that from the utilities and ordering you to pay the rest. That's what's appropriate. I agree with you that it was completely up to her to have to cancel it. But the truth of the matter is that you do know that you're using utilities for 1.5 years or 1 3/4 and not paying for it, and that's not okay. You've got to pay for it. But I am going to deduct from that her half of the rent for the 3 months. So that means a sum total judgment in favor of the plaintiff in the amount of $1,328. Good luck, folks.
Both sides, hold on.
So the plaintiff gets a judgment for half of what she was seeking here in the People's Court. How do you feel about the judge's verdict, Mr. Mack?
It was, I guess, fair. I feel like I shouldn't have paid anything. It wasn't my responsibility. She should have at least took it out of me.
You explain that. Let me ask you about the relationship with her and your son. Where's your son right now?
My son is actually with his grandmother. He's all right. He's mostly with me, but...
His grandmother being her mom?
Yes.
Yeah.
But he's mostly with me. He's good.
All right. Well, thank you very much.
Thank
you
you.
have a few documents you have to sign. Ms. Vickers, if you'll step out here, you know, kind of another messy case here, but you got half of what you were seeking. How do you feel about it?
It was all right. I paid rent when I lived there, but that's besides the point.
Good to have grandmothers, isn't it?
Yeah, all right.
Let me ask you a question. I have to ask you a question I think anybody watching these proceedings might want to know, because we see half of a tattoo on your chest.
Yeah.
What does your tattoo say?
It's crazy when a heart breaks and never breaks even.
So you only see half of it. You have to be dressed differently to see the whole thing, right?
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you very much. A lot of meaning in that. If you'll wait out there, and that'll wrap it up. Harvey?
Okay, Doug, here's the thing. I think that utility bills should be put in both people's names so both are on the hook, so that if it doesn't work out, one person can say, well, you had the bill in your name, so you're responsible. And that will do it for this case. Litigants for the next case on the way into the courtroom right now.